Welcome back to another weekly Forex forecast, traders. Looking at the DXY first, you can see we reacted beautifully off of this weekly demand zone again for the second time. This was called out in last week's weekly Forex forecast. Reminder, it is that weekly demand from back here. We already got that original move off of the zone, so I would have prevented some people from potentially shorting the dollar down there, and we got a massive move. I'm not saying we are going to get even a bigger move than this, but all I'm saying is that the weekly demand is in control. And look, we cannot deny that the weekly demand is in control. And that is why the dollar rallied. And why I'm expecting price to not actually go up to this weekly supply is for this two reasons. One, the zone that we're trading at is tested. Typically with supply and demand zones, we want to trade fresh zones. So for example, a fresh zone is this supply zone above. Price hasn't returned to it. So it's fresh until price hits it, then it's not fresh. So this was not a fresh zone, which makes it more weak in my opinion, which means if we come back for a test, it is most likely that we are going to break that weekly demand. Another big factor is on this daily time frame. So last week we did end up removing this low. So this past week, we did remove that low, which has given us a beautiful daily downward trend and a trend line to monitor. As long as this downward trend line is holding, guys, I personally think shorts is going to be fine. It might be a little bit for US dollar. It might be a little bit tricky because we do have some short-term momentum right now, and we could actually be pushing up towards the trend line. Getting some sort of move like this is definitely possible. It's even possible we do retrace up to this daily supply and get a move off that supply zone before pushing down. At the end of the day, all I'm really seeing right now is, yes, we are getting some momentum on the dollar. However, that weekly demand we're getting the momentum off of is tested, so it's really not that concerning for me. And the trend line is beautiful on the daily chart, really, to me, signaling a lot of weakness. What we're going to have to monitor on the lower time frames pretty much is this. We have this 1 hour trend line here. Not my favorite trend line. I usually don't draw them like this. It's just a weird situation down here with this crazy wick, but whatever. The trend line is decent on the 1 hour chart. If we break this trend line, to me, that is going to be our first clue to suggest that that daily downward trend line is going to be respected. In the meantime, as long as this trend line's holding, I don't mind looking for longs on the dollar. However, it's got to be on the appropriate time frame, which would be the 5-minute time frame. I'm not saying swing trading longs are good. I'm saying 5-minute time frame longs are good, pretty much only as long as this 1 hour trend line's holding. Many people are asking why only 5-minute time frame longs. It's because it's appropriate where if your stop loss on a 5-minute chart might only look something like that, or maybe definitely smaller than that, but your stop loss on a 4 hour or 1 hour chart is going to be like that. So your risk reward gets worse when you're trading higher time frames. So that's why the 5-minute time frame longs are going to be best here, as long as that 1 hour trend line is being respected. And it's even possible we do retrace down to this 4 hour demand and react off of that first. Now, this 4 hour demand, it's not my favorite zone. It removed the trend line. It's kind of a weird basing. It's decent. I like the move away. Not my favorite zone because of the basing though. So if we do pull back to the zone, it's going to be kind of a significant test. I think maybe we could see a small move off the zone before breaking it. So for now, that's going to be a key zone because it removed a trend line. So if this zone does get removed, any supply zone there is going to be decent for shorts. And look, if price comes down to this demand zone, you could actually be looking for longs on the dollar that day, expecting price to maybe go up. I'm not saying price is going to go up to here, but you can get a small long on the dollar once price comes back down to that 4 hour area of demand. But for now, this week, we want to monitor the 1 hour trend and that 4 hour demand zone to see what's taking place in the lower time frames to give us an idea of what's going to take place on the daily and on the weekly time frame. Alrighty, onto the forecast for the Euro US dollar. Obviously, it's just the inverse of the DXY. Beautiful trend line to the upside. That's going to be kind of our swing trading time frame to be judging price off of. If we break the trend line on the daily chart, that's going to be very, very significant. Obviously, we are getting a pullback right now on the euro. So we're going to go down to the lower time frames and see what's taking place. There's really not a lot for zones. What I will say is as long as this 4 hour downward trend line is being respected, you could expect 5-minute time frame shorts to be pretty decent. Profit margin is down to this demand zone at 116. It's kind of an older zone. Don't love the wick either. So it's kind of an older zone. If you are going to get in long at this zone, I personally think aggressive trade management would be preferred. And we actually kind of based up before the zone here originally, before we got pretty much a massive move up. So if we do pull back to the zone, this support area here, I want to see a reaction off the support area to basically give us a liquidity trap rate at our demand zone, that would give me more confidence in this 1 hour demand zone trade, especially since it's kind of an older zone. So that's the liquidity trap I want to see before placing a trade on that zone. And then again, I would be aggressive with trade management, just based on the fact that it is an older zone. If price really starts to work out, then you could actually, maybe at that point, if price shoots out very aggressively, you can actually be less aggressive because the daily trend is actually up. So the only reason I'm saying to be cautious of it is because it's an older zone, but it's actually pretty decent. So again, like I said, you could actually day trade short down to that zone. If you are just bullish all the way, that's completely fine. We have a nice 4 hour upward trend here. As long as this trend line's holding, it's going to be 15-minute time frame longs all the way. And I like that we're close to the trend line. I always say we want to be looking for longs with the trend line. It sucks when I have to say it when price is up here. It's very difficult to get longs up here. It's always better to be getting longs more towards the trend line. If you look at this as a channel, it's better to be looking for longs at the low end of the channel and shorts at the high end of the upper channel. So nice trend lines, nice trends. You want to be looking for longs all the way. In my opinion, for the more long-term approach, the short term is the 5-minute time frame shorts down to that 1 hour demand. Onto the forecast for gold. So looking at a weekly time frame here, I would love these pullbacks to these weekly demand zones. I had a comment last week, oh, gold, no way, we're pulling back. I would never speak in absolutes. I really don't like doing that. Anything is really possible. Anything could happen. There could be a war, whatever. Price could easily pull back to these weekly demand zones, and these are going to be great dip buying opportunities. Even if you're an investor, it's a great time to buy gold down at that weekly area of demand. Now, what are the lower time frames saying? So a little bit of a tricky situation. If you like to get in long and short, if you just like to favor one side, you're actually in luck. Beautiful move off this 4 hour demand zone so far. Called this one out in the daily market breakdown video for the members. Beautiful move so far. This is one where you don't really want to be aggressive with trade management because the trends are up on not only on your entry time frame, but on the higher time frames as well. The weekly trend is up, so you could easily justify leaving your stop loss down here, at least putting it nice under there. I wouldn't really be looking to take profits right now because the trends are up. We easily could target this high. That's just my opinion. That's how I would view it with the higher time frame trends. The 4 hour demand zone's in control and the trend is up, which means 15-minute time frame longs are going to be fine, especially with that 4 hour area of demand in control. And even if we do pull back, I see a pretty decent demand zone all the way down at 35.59, and then the one even lower that I really like the most all the way down here at 34.88. Very good zone down there as well. But once we do get the pullback, like if we do start to get a pullback, you might want to check the daily chart to see where these zones kind of align, because there is a lot of levels on top of levels here. So it is a little bit tricky, but for now, it is longs all the way on the day trading timeframes. Now, if you think, Kevin, you are so wrong, price is going to go down, why would you be buying gold as it's trending up? We got to be shorting because we're at the all-time highs. If you think that, I don't love that because, I'd rather be getting along with the trend. I get not buying at all-time highs. It makes me a little bit nervous as well. I totally understand that. However, it's just a little bit risky. So on the 1 hour chart here, we do have this 1 hour supply and control. We're kind of getting a reaction off of it right now. If this 1 hour supply continues to hold, 5-minute time frame shorts could be good. But again, what we want to look for is essentially this, a trend line up into this zone here, maybe some demand zones. If we can remove the demand zones and the trend lines, any supply would be our confirmation trade as we come off of our higher time frame trade, our higher time frame zone. We just want to make sure we're doing it on a 5-minute time frame. And if you like to trade the 1 hour chart, that's fine. If we remove this supply and preferably the high up here as well, any demand zone there will represent a pretty good dip buying opportunity, especially since the trends are up and we actually caught it. Alrighty, on to the forecast for the USDJPY. A very tricky higher time frame as we are not at a daily supply and we are not at a daily demand. And we are basically just going sideways. So a little bit tricky and a little bit risky. Doesn't mean we can't trade. What this means is if you are trading in the middle of this range here, you want to just be aggressive with your trade management. Feel free to check out my top-down analysis video where I discuss that in more detail about trade management. However, continuing on here, we do have the daily supply and the daily demand. I will Cannot stress enough, shorts at supply and longs at demand are going to be our higher odds situations. These are going to be areas where you can justify holding to demand. You can justify holding to supply because we can get bigger moves off of those higher time frame zones. Now, we did catch a beautiful, quick little trade here on the 1 hour chart. This demand zone removed a downward trend line. Absolutely picture perfect move away. Two very nice explosive candles. The basing was decent. And I mean, look at this trade. A little bit of drawdown. At first, a little bit scary at first, and then price went to pretty much our take profit very quickly after price contacted the zone. Now, I wasn't even really looking for this much out of this trade, but this basing here really helped us out and push price up and allowed us to kind of be just a less aggressive with our stop loss as we got that explosive move here. So nice trade. You could actually still be continuing to target the daily area of supply. So you actually could be holding 25% of your position or something like that until we hit that daily supply. It's just definitely an option. Me personally, I don't know how much the dollar is going to go up. Yeah, we are off that weekly demand right now, like I talked about on the DXY. It just makes me a little bit nervous because that weekly demand is tested. So if you skip my analysis on the DXY, you definitely want to make sure you are continuing. You want to go back and watch that DXY analysis to really understand what's going on. So if you are still bullish, as long as this trend line's holding, you could be looking for 5-minute time frame longs. And even if you were long from this demand zone, you really could just be trailing your stop with this trend line as well. Try to get as much out of the trade as you can, but again, there's not really any higher time frame here to go off of, so it's a little bit tricky. On the 4 hour time frame, we did remove a 4 hour trend with this area demand down below. Again, I don't normally cut through wicks like this, so do not get used to that, guys. It's very, very rare. If price does pull back down this 4 hour demand zone, I think we maybe could see a small move off the zone. I'm not saying we're gonna get a massive move. It's more likely we get a small move off the zone before breaking it to pull back down to that daily demand if we do. I'm just saying this could be an area where we actually do get a nice trade off that 4 hour zone. So yeah, this was a beautiful 1 hour trade. And yeah, I point out these zones all the time for the members in the Diamond membership. If you want to trade alongside myself and the members, join the Diamond membership, where you will have access to the 38-page supply and demand zone PDF, which will be your complete trading guide, the daily market breakdown videos, which are forecasts that I release every single night for the members to trade alongside myself, step-by-step video lessons A to Z covering everything you need to know on supply and demand trading, the Sunday strategy Zoom session where members submit homework, and it's an interactive 1 hour call where we go over all of your homework and every trading related question, private access to myself inside of our private Discord group where I answer all of your trading related questions, and finally the Sunday live stream forecast where we break down over 30 markets together. And it's not just me. Here are some of the members and some of their trades they've been taking lately, absolutely killing it. And we also have some amazing reviews from some of the past members sharing their experience within the group. So if you're ready to trade alongside myself and the community, join the Diamond membership today. Links in the description down below. Alrighty, on to the forecast for the GBPUSD. We will do a full top-down approach here. So what I'm seeing is we have a weekly upward trend and we have a weekly demand that is in control. We did kind of test the highs here, and that is why I think we are kind of starting to sell off. So I know nobody enters on a weekly chart. I just want to point out the higher time frame trends are up. In my opinion, the longs are going to be the higher odds situation, not only because of the weekly trend, but also because of this beautiful daily trend. And we're actually getting close to testing this daily trend line. So longs are actually, it's a great time for longs in my opinion. Just looking at this as a channel, we'd be buying at the low end of the channel. Could it break? Absolutely. Anything could happen. I'm not saying we are perfect here. We take plenty of losses here. I'm never saying you're going to turn 50 bucks into 50 grand. I'm not one of those guys at all. If you want real, trading tips like that are actually real, really based on reality, like you're in the right place. So I would definitely hit that subscribe button if you guys haven't yet, and I would appreciate a like as well. So if you want to continue to look for longs, which I personally think is best, we are actually at this 4 hour demand zone. I've been pointing this one out for the members, and we are already getting a reaction off of it now. So if you are late to the party, that's fine. What that means is we have a 4-hour demand and control, which means 5-minute or even 15-minute time frame longs are going to be good. I prefer the 15-minute, but 5-minute time frame longs are going to be fine as well. We easily could be targeting this daily supply. Maybe you might be asking, why do we want to be less aggressive with trade management here? Well, because the weekly demand is in control. The daily upward trend line, we're at the low end of it, so it's a good time in my opinion. So that's why I think we could expect to see, you know, a larger move. It'll be difficult to hold all the way to this supply, but you know, it's just something to consider, is we could actually get a bigger move than expected off of this zone. And if we do pull up this supply, if you're bearish, that's really our only supply zone I see for shorts. It removed a nice trend line. I like it for shorts. So if you're bearish, that would be our 4-hour supply zone for shorts here on the GBPUSD. And if you want to get more aggressive with shorts, looking at the 1-hour time frame, we have a pretty decent base drop. I like the zone. I like what I'm seeing on this time frame. The only issue is when you look at a higher time frame, the whole perspective changes, right? So we don't want to be hyper focused. We want to be looking at multiple time frame analysis, and that's telling me, look, we could short at the zone, absolutely. However, I wouldn't expect a big move, and any move, I would at least move my stop loss to half risk or break even and be looking for a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1 trade off of a zone like this. But at the end of the day, it's a pretty good zone. It's just, again, the higher time frame trend and the higher time frame demand and control on the 4-hour chart, that is what's going against this little 1-hour zone. So that's why if you want to trade it, again, aggressive trade management would be fine. But if you're bullish, you could be less aggressive with trade management on that 4-hour demand because of the weekly demand and control and the daily upward trend. All right, on to the forecast for the USDCAD. Kind of a weird situation here. We do have a weekly demand and control, and a weekly trend line actually respected beautifully here. Not my favorite trend line. The demand zone's pretty good, a little bit tricky. We do have a daily upward trend here, in my opinion. However, I almost want to remove this trend now. It's just the overall trend is up, but when we see this, to me, that's just sideways. So I'm actually going to remove my upward trend arrow just to be safe. I don't want to be thinking we're trading in a trend here. That's just my opinion. So we are pretty much in a range on the daily time frame, and I did think that. I don't know why I didn't remove that upward arrow here. And we actually caught a nice trade here off of this 4-hour area of supply. And this one was called out in the daily market breakdown video for the Diamond members. Pretty quick trade for me. The big reason, I actually expect the dollar to continue to drop based off of everything I talked about in the DXY. However, I didn't love the supply zone. I mean, I didn't mind the basing. The move away was pretty good. The issue is the better supply is actually sitting right above. So I've talked about this before. When we have a level on top of level like this, typically we want to look for a lower risk reward here and a higher risk reward on the one above. So that's why this was a quick trade, in my opinion. And the better supply zone is actually sitting right above at 1.39 over here. So that's the better supply where we could look for shorts off of. I mean, as long as this 4-hour supply is holding, I think looking for 15-minute time frame shorts could be good. Again, I don't day trade. I'm more of a swing trader, and I'm already out of this setup now. So again, beautiful trade, called out beforehand, because we always call out things beforehand. So I'm not really seeing anything right now. We don't really have a trend on the 1-hour chart. We don't have a trend on the 4-hour chart. Very tricky. We kind of either need to wait for, you know, the supply about to be hit for a short, or break the high in the 1-hour chart and create a new trend, and then we could look for longs. So if you're a day trader, we want to wait for a trend on the 1-hour chart. If you're a swing trader, we want to wait for the 4-hour supply zone above. All right, moving on to the forecast for the AUDUSD. The most important thing here is that we have a nice daily upward trend. Not only that, we have a nice trend line. This trend line is kind of going to be our guide to see if this trend is going to hold. If we break the trend line, we might want to hold off on longs until we can hit a higher time frame zone like this daily zone. So just keep that in mind. We want to be monitoring this trend line. And I mean, look at this massive sell-off we have seen. This makes for very difficult trading conditions, especially if you're on the lower time frames. For example here, I have to give a shout out to Philip, one of our members in the group, talked about how it's frustrating to hit so many losses in a row, but when you trust your process and your analysis, it works out. Even if you have 10 losses in a row, like you said, it doesn't change anything. The profits will come. And look at this crazy screenshot. Absolutely picture perfect example of patience and a good risk reward, where he took 2 losses and a beautiful trade that was a winner. Just a picture perfect example of being patient. So I had to give a shout out to Philip there, and who actually he tunes into the podcast, I think, as well, the Stoic Trading Psychology podcast, which will help you guys deal with losses and trade like Philip was doing, where he's accepting the losses. So make sure you check out that podcast. I also have a YouTube channel for the podcast as well. So check it out. It's definitely going to help you with the psychology aspect side of trading. So our higher time frame is to the upside. So our bias is actually to the upside. The issue here is I'm not really seeing any zones. We do have this 4-hour trend line that is currently being tested right now, and it's actually technically being removed. If we were closed right now, we have 19 minutes left at the time of recording. To me, it looks like it's going to break, so I am just going to remove it a little bit. I'm basically 20 minutes early, if you can see over here, but that's fine. It's looking really weak. I'm surprised this zone broke, but again, sometimes, yeah, we want to be looking for longs at zones like this. However, we can expect losses when we're trading in a higher time frame trend as well, because price might want to test the lower end of the trend before rallying out. So still a decent zone there. Ended up breaking it. So what do we do from here? Well, again, our bias is to the long side. However, I cannot deny the strength of this downward trend right now. So as long as this downward trend line is holding, if you're a day trader, I think 5-minute time frame shorts are good. Again, if you're a swing trader, I wouldn't be trading this right now. I would just be waiting. And what I'd be waiting as a swing trader is longs. I'd be waiting for longs only because of the higher time frame trend. So if you are a day trader, 5-minute time frame shorts are good with this downward trend line. But once we break the trend line, any 1-hour zone there, that's going to represent a pretty good buying opportunity, not only because we break a downward trend, but because that would be essentially a long trade in the overall daily upward trend. On to the forecast for the USD Swiss. We do have a daily downward trend line here, so this is really going to be our guide as well. The last couple of weeks we haven't really had a trend line, but when we broke the low, now we have a trend line that could easily be responsible for pushing price lower, and it's great to watch what happens at these trend lines. So I'm very happy that we actually have more of a clear trend right now. However, we clearly have broken this trend to the downside. I don't really see any demand zone here. We do have a pretty decent supply zone above potential liquidity trap. So if you want to trade at the supply zone, I don't mind it. I would like to see another reaction off of this support liquidity to kind of give us liquidity for that supply zone above. That would be a little bit of a higher odds situation. Kind of a weird basing here as well, so I wouldn't mind having a wider stop on this one. And I think it could be rewarding, as I think we could get a pretty large move off of a zone like that if we continue to push up to that zone. Why do I think the big move could happen? Because again, the weekly trend is down and the daily trend is down as well. So that's why I'm expecting again that bigger move here in the Swiss, and it might just be that the move's not going to happen until we hit that supply zone. So if you think we're going to hit that supply zone, that's fine. What you could be doing is looking for longs as long as this 1-hour trend line's holding. 5-minute time frame longs are going to be good. Even if we break the trend line, what we want to do is hold off on longs below the trend line until we hit this demand zone. Then we can continue to look for longs at that demand at 0.788. But for now, it is certainly longs all the way with that 1-hour trend line all the way up to the 4-hour supply. Then we definitely want to hop on shorts. I am mid to long-term bearish on this pair, especially because the US dollar trends are down. And yeah, so I'm long-term bearish for now, day trading longs up to that supply. And then from there, we want to definitely hold off on longs and switch to shorts. All right, last but not least, we are on to crude oil. So this has been one of the most frustrating pairs. That's not a pair, but you know, it's one of the most frustrating instruments to trade lately, and here's why. So it's already, looking at this weekly chart, it is tricky. We have a weekly demand and control. So typically you want to look for a long trade off of a weekly demand. The one thing that's going against it is that the weekly trend is actually down. So that's what makes it tricky alone on just this one time frame. When you go to the other time frames, it just adds to the confusion. Not confusion, just kind of the frustration. But frustration is all part of trading, and I'm not actually frustrated. I'm just kind of talking here. But you can see we have our trend line from here to here, and that trend line, we got another reaction off of it beautifully right there. So it's frustrating. I want to see the break of this trend line because I want to get a long trade off of that weekly demand. but it's just not giving me that buy signal yet. We don't have that nice daily downward trend line, or that daily downward trend line that broke yet. We just don't have it. So until we break that daily downward trend, longs are going to be kind of a low odds situation. I cannot stress that enough. And even on the 4-hour chart, I mean, it's kind of just all over the place here. We have this older zone here. I don't love it. Kind of just not even concerned about it, to be honest. But there's just really not a lot to go off of here. We do have that supply zone above at 65.82. So if we do start to retrace up to here, if we break that supply, any demand zone is going to be decent for a long trade, just because the weak demand is in control. If you're bearish, that would really be our supply zone short. That's really the only way I'd be shorting at a zone right now. But we actually do have a 1-hour downward trend, so you technically could be day trading short, because the 1-hour downward trend is trending, and the daily downward trend is trending, or the daily chart is trending as well. So shorts are actually pretty decent right now. However, I'm just letting you guys know, we should be waiting for a buy signal based off of that weak demand that is in control. So a little bit tricky right now. Me personally, as a swing trader, I'm going to be waiting to see what happens at this daily downward trend line to see if we can break it, and at the 4-hour supply zone above. And if you're day trading, we could definitely be continuing to look for the shorts on the 5-minute chart, and even maybe even the 15-minute time frame as well. If you want access to the full Forex forecast, make sure you subscribe to the Diamond membership, where you get access not only to my daily chart analysis, but also my daily forecast, where I forecast basically like this forecast, but every single day for the members. It also comes with the 38-page PDF, which is your guide for trading as well. Make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, and I'll see you in the next video.